Okay, so this week we're going to pick up with vaYiqra, which is also known as Leviticus, chapter 23. We're all the way up to verse 35, no, 36. On the first day, be a Mikra Kodesh, a holy meeting. You shall not do any of your labor. So we have switched over ago to the celebration of Sukkot. So this is, of course, about Sukkot. So we pick up with 26, in very literal, and I do mean very literal English. 7 days you shall bring they burnt offerings to Yahweh. In day the 8th, convocation holy, he will be, or it will be, to you, and make come you, so and bring, or you will bring, burnt offering to Yahweh, assembly, it all work service, not you shall make they. You won't do it. Okay. So we begin with Shivat Yamin, so 7 days, and these are, in fact, 24-hour days. Ta ke rivu, you shall bring them, or they. It's to approach, to come near, used of men, especially of time. God is said to draw near when he aids the afflicted. Those are said to draw near to God who worship him. So it's of, on that side of the room, and you come to this side of the room, you have drawn near to this side of the room. Anyway, it's exactly what you'd think. Then it says ish, which is the Hebrew word for fire. In this case, it's a burnt offering. They don't say burnt offering per se. You just say fire here in Hebrew. It's of a sacrifice, so called from the fire by which it is burned. It comprehends all kinds of sacrifices, and is even once used of a sacrifice that wasn't burned. Why would they do that? Well, because they use this particular word to describe anything that connects to a human. It goes from fire to passion. And when you use it anthropomorphically, I totally messed up that word, but you know what I'm saying. When you're describing God as having hands and eyes and stuff like that, you're basically reducing God to human. Also passion. So I would guess, now I haven't looked it up, but I would guess that one occasion probably is about passion. And again, this day in English is not always a 24-hour period, 24 hours. The Bible speaks about the day that the children of Yisrael were in captivity in Mitzrayim in Egypt. Well, that day was 430 years. That one day was 430 years. Look it up. Google it. How far you'll get with that. But the day they were in the wilderness, well, that was 40 years. So when scientists say, well, everything was out there hundreds of bazillions of years, and eventually there was Earth, and then 100 years later, there were 100 bazillions later, blah, blah, blah. Well, first off, you don't have a sun and the moon until day 4. So you can't have a 24-hour day period until that happens. Not possible. So that whole first 3 to 4 days could have been hundreds of indication that everything that we know to be happened in basically 6 consecutive days, because you remember the seventh day God rested. It's nonsense. The Hebrew word never meant that it was 24-hour day periods. But these are 24-hour day periods. Then it says Ha-Shemini, which for holy congregation sanctuary. It's a place of recitation and reading. That's what that recitation would be. But it's from the root kara, which is to cry out with them together. So it's how are you going to have an assembly if someone doesn't call one? Well, these days we just put it in our little phone or in our little computer. Or in the temple, if you want to go back far, which we ought to, since at this point that's where we are in history. They had, tables and an ark and stands and stuff like that, right? So all of that stuff was made specifically for the sanctuary. And so they are holy things. You don't take them out and use them for some other party. You don't take them to Joe Schmo's house or should I say Schmostein's house? Some of you will get that. And they are used. It's important for us to understand that these are holy, which also will indicate that they are eternal, that meetings to you. This is Hebrew. Probably familiar with Hebrew. Don't pronounce it all. That it's bring. It's to approach. So it's Yahweh, or you're making on the first last day Passover. And in this case, same thing, right? Restraint, not restraint from work, but there is this idea of restraint. So let's look at the image of any together, especially when used. You have to have, daddy, this all, kol is totality, all. And honestly, most of the time when that word kol is used in the Hebrew Bible, it is hyperbolic. It does not literally mean everything. In the Hebrew, what we call nowadays the Jewish religion, that book was written for the Jews and the Jewish religion. So it's all of the Jews are the ones to be compelled, not anybody else. It wasn't written for anybody else. It was written strictly for the Jews. And I don't want to get into some argument about, but when Jesus came, no, we're about the Hebrew, and it was written for the Hebrew, God, for the Hebrew people, for the Hebrew religion, and nothing beyond that. So these people, and you understand that these Jews, these Hebrews, they came from every nation and every time. They came from everywhere. You had white ones, black ones, olive ones, everywhere. It says it right there. Just look at when it in your book when it says that Moshe, when you get to the point where Moshe, or Moses as he's known, is literally taking them out of the land of Mitzrayim, as it's called in Hebrew, Egypt. For those of you who don't know what that meant, it says it was a mixed multitude, meaning it was people from, descendants of a. It covers, a lot of things, but Avodah is a, if you have a job, let's say you're one of the Kohanim, you're one of the priests, and you have a job, and your job is just to light the the little containers, the nar on the menorah. Your job is just to keep them filled with oil and keep them burning. That's your service. That's your avodah. If your job is more like Moshe and you're writing down the law of God, that's your service. If you're somebody who's interpreting the law, that's your service. If you're Aharon, you're the one who's supposed to lead all of these convocations, right? So your service. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're some kind of craftsman or you're some kind of farmer or something like that. Whatever you do, that's your service. Then it says lo, so you're not going to do any of that. Then it says ta'asa, do. So you're not going to do any of your service. Of course, the ta'asu is from asa. It's to labor, to work about anything, to make, to produce, to manufacture. Well, if you're one of the people filling up the oil, that's what you produce. Is keeping those little bowl type things that sit on the top of the menorah filled with oil and burning continually. That's what you produce. That's what you manufacture. If you're an attorney, you're producing services for people who need attorneys, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Okay. Is that our last word, or did we have a... Yeah, that is. Okay, so my translation then becomes 7 days you shall bring fire offerings to Yahweh. On the 8th day will be to you a holy meeting. And you will bring fire offerings to Yahweh. It makes no difference. It, speaking of Sukkot, is a compelled assembly. It is of course, I'm leaving out. No, I've already said, remember I pointed out the compelled. It is a compelled assembly. You have to be there. You shall not do any of your occupational labor. None of it. This is the day of rest, a day of restraint, even from work. Or specifically, I should say, as it was quite specific about that. Okay, I did remember. So now we move on to 37, very literally. These appointed times, Yahweh, that shall call out they with them convocations holy, to make approach burnt offerings to Yahweh, burnt offerings and gift sacrifice, and drink offerings, word day, in day it. So these, Moadai, these are the appointed times. It's a set time to appoint a time, especially a festival. And God's saying, on the so-and-so day of the so-and-so new moon. So they're set on a very specific day, right? They are appointed times. Even if you say, well, there is the one that it doesn't give an exact date. You're supposed to count the so many Shabbatot and all of that to get to that time. That's still set. You just have to count it up and get whatever day it winds up on that particular year, but it's still set. It's still appointed. So these are the appointed times, Yahweh. So they're Yahweh's appointed times. Asher tikreu. So that's the cry out with a passionate voice, or more particular with a loud voice. So someone's going to have to get out there and call the meeting to order. Maybe they'll get them a gavel and bang, 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 bang. And, I call this meeting to order. Maybe they'll blow a shofar and everybody will know it's time to come and get together and be quiet so you can hear what the speaker is going to say. But they're going to be called together. Now, everybody already knows what day it's going to be, but there will be an official calling, which is what we do, blow the shofar to officially begin, sometimes and end. This is otam, which doesn't actually have any meaning. It's him. So there is that part of it does translate to a word. Kara, there, yeah, it's from that same word. It's a calling together, a convocation, to have an assembly, to have a meeting. And this is Kodesh, so it's the holy meeting. The meetings that are required. Leha keriv. So it's to approach, to draw near. Used quite often in this part of the Torah to indicate that it's make an offering, because that is an idiomatic way of saying make an offering. But in this case, it's followed by ish, the word for fire. So you're going to make a burnt offering. They're very specific here. La Yahweh, so 2 or 4 Yahweh. Then it says Olah. Well, that's another word for offering than ish, because ish is used in a lot of other ways where Olah tends to be for the burnt offering. But as a gift, you're bringing a gift. And it says the skinning, the carving up for the purpose of cooking. Which is word, means word. Word, speech, discourse, even a promise, something promised, a precept, an edict, a royal mandate. Those are all called words. A word for day, be-yomo. So let's move on to that. Claim in them a holy meeting to make sacrifice instead of the I've kind of broken this one idiom up into 2 to try to make it make more sense. I have declared rules on specific days, because that's what's being said here. It's just saying these are the rules on these specific days, the Moadai. Okay. So 38, the literal. From to alone, Sabbaths in plural. Yeah, and from beside all vows your, and from beside all free will offerings your, that shall give they to Yahweh. Milvad, from to alone, quite literally. It's separation, something is separated, a part. Equal portion, leaves of a tree, blah, blah, blah. Then we have Shabbatot. So this is Sabbath in plural. And you remember that the rule of grammar in biblical Hebrew is that the say in English and it's so say along with, but you're already within the law that if it's a gift, argument about a tithe. If you're required to pay a tithe, that's considered it, though someone is receiving it. Mi levad, and so need Hashem. So you have your vows, exercising. I'm going to stop cussing, stop drinking, stop smoking. Vanna. VOW. It's an oath. You're making a promise. Alongside all of that, Kol Nidam, free will offerings, things that you give freely. Kind of like we've already had that, right? you've got the gift, and now you got the free will gift. Asher tiknu, that you're going to give. It's to cause to receive. So you can't just tell somebody, hey, I'm going to give you $10. No, you got to put that $10 in their hand. You got to cause them to receive it, right? So you're